Welcome to the Digital Hoofprint Podcast, where brands mean what they say, culture is designed to deliver, and the leaders, well, they give a damn about being different. Each week, I talk brand, culture, and creativity with founders, leaders, entrepreneurs, and makers who are building what they believe in. I'm your host, Abriana Johnson, and this show will give you a glimpse into how leaders align their brand and culture for sustainable growth. Your brand promise is only as strong as your ability to deliver it. So let's get into it. Hey y'all, it's Abriana, and I am so happy to be back. Coming back on this podcast has been a long time coming and a long time desire of mine. Honestly, in January of 2024, I thought I would be able to sustain returning to the Digital Hoofprint podcast, but I still had some healing I needed to do in order to find my voice and find my perspective again as a business owner and entrepreneur. I spent the last year really resting, watching, thinking, and building a perspective on business, leadership, and brand evolution that will support my clients in developing some of the most impactful brands led by the most capable leaders. So before we go forward, let's go back a little bit so that I can paint the picture for you about why this matters. If you've listened to the podcast before or have been following me for some time, you know that my background is in veterinary medicine. And because I spent countless hours in the back ends and the behind the scenes of many businesses, I learned quite a bit. But as a pre-veterinary student, when I thought about what I learned, I focused on medicine, observation, articulating my findings. But when I look back through the lens of business acumen, I realized I learned so much more about client relations and communications, business operations, team building and management, and observing nonverbal behaviors that influence the energy in a space. So after leaving vet med or the animal hospital, I went full-time in my business, and I was a brand and web designer for businesses in the horse industry. Riding horses was one of the more naturally 6 feet away activities. So a lot of businesses were inundated with what we like to call city folk who expected more from them than, just leave a check on the counter or on the table in the barn or text me to book. They were used to systems and they were used to convenience. And so I was able to bring that to some of the most amazing equine businesses. One of the biggest challenges I saw was that business owners were not sure what their digital presence was supposed to be and how to leverage it. Since then, I've been focused on building brands through coaching and consulting on brand leadership. But what has come from that? I have been able to support corporate teams for 4 years in developing a common language to lead themselves and others through uncertainty with a company called Teaching Horse. One of the biggest challenges leaders face when they leave a leadership development experience is knowing how to take this new learning back into their work. One of the chief complaints I heard was that there was a mismatch between the concepts they learn in sessions and the actual day-to-day of their jobs. Their teams were afraid to assume any responsibility or risk. Their leadership distributed top-down messaging that was pretty tone-deaf sometimes. And these leaders were tired of hearing things like be more influential or think at an enterprise level or build a culture of belonging when the standards or the metrics they were being held to were either unrelated or supported the exact opposite. So I launched the Digital Hoofprint podcast to initially help business owners develop their online presence. But I realized that the work was deeper than tricks and tactics. My goal now is to bridge the gap between brand and culture building so that teams, the brands they support, and the business outcomes they are responsible for are more strategically aligned. Now, in order to do that, I had to change or even upgrade my perspective. So I wanted to share some of the top 3 perspective shifts that I had and what that means for me today. So that is what this episode is going to be about. So the first perspective shift that I had was this concept of brand as business, as a management style. So let's start with the first part of that. What is a brand? As defined by some of the branding greats like Marty Neumeier, it's a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or company, not the company's own projection of what they want that feeling to be. He is infamous for saying, it's not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. After studying Marty Neumeier and his approach to branding, I came across a book by Denise Lee Yon called Fusion that describes the gap that I was seeing in my leadership development work. The brands were not succeeding, or the leaders did not feel successful because the cultures couldn't keep up, or they were never designed to. They could not keep up with the leadership expectations. In this book, Fusion, Denise introduces a concept called brand as business, which is a management approach that involves using your brand to drive your culture, company operations, and customer experiences. Your brand is the central organizing and operating idea in your business. The opportunities that this management approach provides are exposure to new growth and innovation as you gain a deeper understanding of the type of business that you're really in. It really sets the stage for innovation and resilience during turbulent times, and boy, do we need that right now. This management style also helps execute on business objectives. Having a central operating idea, or like Branding Studio motto likes to say, an idea worth rallying around. Having that central operating idea, you can understand your current performance drivers and actually use the key components of an intentionally designed brand to filter your decision making. And lastly, brand as business as a management style is a key influencer of shaping your team. When you are clear on how you want your brand to show up in the face of not only your customers, but your employees also, you use this practice of brand as business to design hiring, onboarding, and employee engagement strategies that actually make sense and that actually align with where you want your business to be in the future. I am a firm believer that there are multiple stakeholders influencing your brand's perception, and your employees are on the front line of that perception. So it's so important to keep them in mind when you're designing a brand strategy that makes sense. The second perspective shift that I had when I kind of relaunched Black Unicorn Creative is a more holistic understanding of brand, culture, and leadership, and how to draw the line between the three. I mean, like I mentioned previously, the book Fusion by Denise Lee Yon connected a lot of dots for me, and it helped offer me words to those observations I mentioned having over not only the last 4 years of doing leadership development work, but the last 10 years of my entire career. Being able to connect those dots offered me a perspective that I think will really make a difference with my clients. In her book, she talks about some benefits of brand and culture alignment. And when I tell you, when I read these, I was like, yes, like this makes sense. This is the work. This is the connection that some people are missing. And in an environment where, costs of everything are going up, consumers are choosing less expensive things just to settle, just because they can, because their pockets are not overflowing. It is the brand that is going to keep them connected to your business. When they can find a commodity somewhere, when they can find a very similar item, a very just good enough item somewhere else that is maybe a little cheaper, maybe less risky, less of an investment, they will do that. But it is your brand that's going to keep them around. So when you are intentionally aligning your brand and culture, you're able to develop a common focus and motivation for your entire organization. And you get to move towards your vision so much quicker. So, for example, if you ever find yourself asking why leading your team feels like an uphill battle every single day, you may find that everybody has different priorities. They have different habits, different understandings of the vision, and different ideas about how to get there. Alignment is not about convincing everyone to think the same way. It's truly a way to leverage the diverse perspectives on your team and their diverse experiences and leverage them towards a common goal. Another benefit of this alignment is increased efficiency and better quality of your business outcomes. When you lead a brand with clear values and you actually outline the behaviors that are connected to those values, you attract the talent that aligns with those behaviors, and you create teams that are equally inspired by the brand as the customers are. This is why you can recall, I know you know this, when you go to places like Chick-fil-A and they say "my pleasure," you smile, right? So much so that if they don't say my pleasure, or if they say "you're welcome," you're like, what? Now wait a minute. or say at Moe's Southwest Grill, when you open the door and they say "welcome to Moe's," as soon as you walk in, you notice when it's eerily quiet when you walk in if they don't say "welcome to Moe's." It is those small behaviors that set the expectations for consumers, and it has a huge impact on brand perception. Next, when you align your brand and your company culture, you ensure the authenticity of your brand. I know that you as a business leader have heard people say, be more authentic, be more authentic. And it's hard to understand how to do that. How can you show up as authenticity, especially if you're not the face of the brand, especially if you have a brand story that you're not really interested in airing out all of your dirty laundry, okay? I get it. I completely get it. Brand and culture alignment helps you execute on that. So in a world where customers are holding brands to the decisions they make, I'm looking at Target, making sure that there is alignment between who you are and how you operate is a critical priority. There are literally stocks and brand equity at stake, as we have seen with Target's rollback of DEI policies. There is no sense in subscribing to values that cannot be traced to any of the actions or the decisions within your business. And again, a brand is what other people say you are, not what you say you are. And the only way that people can say what matches with your brand identity or your brand strategy is if you actually demonstrate behaviors that align with it. Lastly, brand and culture alignment ensures that your company has a competitive advantage. And this is why I say that I support leaders who give a damn about being different, because this is where brand and culture alignment offers the opportunity to stand out from the crowd. Your competitors can try to copy your brand colors, copy your messaging, or your products even, but they'll never be able to duplicate the energy that comes from a culture that is proud of who they are and how they show up. And when those two things align, that is intangible value. You cannot duplicate that. They will never be able to lead in the market. And they'll always be a step behind the game because they're watching you. They're watching you and waiting on you to make a move that dictates how they move. So if your competition is doing that, they will always be behind. So don't even worry about that. The last perspective shift that I had. So number one was understanding brand as business as a management strategy. Number two was understanding a holistic view of brand, culture, and leadership. That puts me into the last kind of big shift that I had. And that's placing emphasis on values-based leadership. Now, this might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but in the current state of the world, it is a gift if our employment is aligned 100% with our personal values. It's a really nice feeling, and honestly, it's one of the reasons I really enjoy entrepreneurship. But I understand that this is not the reality for everybody. And this is why I place emphasis on leadership values. Like, what do you value in your role as a leader? Now, ideally, your leadership role would not be too far off from your personal values, but we are not striving for perfection here, okay? We're not trying to have a 100% alignment between your personal values, your leadership values, and the values of the organization that you work for. It would be nice, but let's be realistic, okay? Now, values-based leadership is when you identify your leadership values and use them to guide your actions and decision-making. This approach to leading a team is designed to develop deeper relationships between teams. It's designed to bridge silos within an organization and to actually develop a culture that can move swiftly, can actually receive feedback and pivot agile. One of the biggest challenges my branding clients would have is understanding how decisions were made in their business. You know how much you hated hearing your parents say, "Because I said so," when you ask, like, why? Employees feel the same way. I know I did when I was an employee. I'm like, you're going to have to tell me something a little bit different. You're going to have to give me a reason, my friend. When everyone understands what value system decisions are being made through, their resistance to new initiatives or changes is lessened. There's already a sense of familiarity because of the value system that's already in place. One of the key components to value-based leadership is modeling the behavior you want to see, truly leading by example. Leading teams with similar values does not mean everyone has to agree, but it supports the notion that business will be able to leverage the cohesion of their leaders and their team members to make good decisions for the business. Now, these perspective shifts offer me the opportunity to redefine what work looks like for me. I have the opportunity to help clients develop cultures that can deliver on their brand promise. And I get to coach leaders, brand leaders, who get to lead the charge. This work feels so much more aligned and clear, and is a natural evolution from my years of what I like to call execution mode. Now, I get to support the brand leaders in their journey to not only grow their businesses and organizations, but themselves as well. If today's conversation got you thinking about how your business or organization aligns your brand and culture, or how your leadership influences that alignment, then you need to join me for this webinar, my first big webinar, and I am so excited, y'all. It is called Your Personal BrandOS, a framework for leaders shaping the future. The Personal BrandOS is my framework for building an operating system around who and how you want to show up in your leadership journey. When I put this training together, I really thought about leaders and entrepreneurs who are doing meaningful work, but feel like their leadership presence doesn't really reflect exactly how they want to be perceived as a leader. Those same people might be looking up executive branding or leadership styles, or taking a bunch of quizzes and assessments, and nothing seems to really ever stick. These same people want influence that's more than just visibility. They want to be able to see impact, whether it's in their team culture or in their community. These same people are not quite concerned about vanity metrics. We're not necessarily saying that they are social media superstars, okay? But they want to be people of influence. So if you are stepping into a new role or pivoting or entering a new chapter and you want your brand of leadership to grow with you, if you're tired of showing up in your business or in your organization in ways that are not sustainable for you, and if your leadership influences the tone of the culture around you and the performance associated with that, this is the training for you. I am so excited to be putting this together, and I really hope that you'll join me. Thank you for listening to this reintroduction. I am so happy to be back on the mic and back supporting my clients. If you learned something today, don't hesitate to tag me on social media, send me a message. Please rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast episode so that I can reach more brand leaders just like you. See you next week.